On Tuesday this week, a medical doctor in Lagos fell to her death in a faulty elevator at work. The elevator was in a general hospital at Odan, Lagos Island. This incident has thrown up questions about the maintenance culture in public facilities in the country. Industry players are insisting that most public facilities do not get funds to finance proper maintenance, technology, and manpower. These, among other issues, they say, is responsible for the maintenance issues in most of these public buildings in Nigeria. These issues inform our focus on public facility management. Welcome to Nigeria Today. I am your carrier, Clinton. Joining me in the studio to discuss public facility management is Felix Obiora-Nwankwo, an engineer. He's the acting coordinator, Abuja Metropolitan Management Council, AMMC, as well as director of facility maintenance and management. Good to have you in Nigeria Today.
Thank you.
Also joining us in the studio is Henrich Akomolafe, an engineer with a lot of experience with elevators. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, I'll start with you, Henrich. Yeah. You know, just like the introduction, the recent incident that occurred in Lagos, and unfortunately, a life was lost. Now, in your opinion, what could have been, or what will, how will I put it now, what really is the issue with public facilities?
Thank you for having me once again. To be honest with you, you know, public facilities, there's a lot of issues when it comes to maintenance culture in Nigeria. Look at the death of the doctor, the new doctor that is supposed to graduate from a housemanship in the next 2 months. It's a very painful death, and it's a death that is rightly avoidable. Looking at the public facilities like in an hospital, having a faulty elevator, apparently, I think it is high time the government needs to start regulating that industry. I'm an expert in the elevator industry, and you don't need to tell me from an elevator falling from a 10-story building down to the... It's almost impossible for that to happen because there are required standards, normatives that have been put in place when they manufacture an elevator. And it's almost impossible if a right regulations, coordinations, and maintenance are made carried on elevator for an elevator to fall from the 10th floor. Because, yes, even if all the ropes cut off, there's also a safety gear that helps the elevator to sustain any pressure. So I think it is just carelessness and lack of maintenance culture in a public facility. Just today, I wrote to the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and the Corel president as well for the need to start regulating the elevator industry. It is an engineering standard. In South Africa, they regulate the elevator industry. In America, in the Western world. So why is Nigeria different? And being in a public institution, being in a public facility, it is quite very embarrassing. So it's high time the government starts looking into little things like this. It's nothing complex, to be honest. So it's high time we need to start regulating, not even only in the elevator industries, in public facilities, toilets and the rest of it. You go to the airport, you could see for yourself that these things are not properly managed. What is the facility management doing? Just recently, I know the Nigerian Society of Engineers created another sector of members of the facility management institutions to be able to regulate and checkmate these institutions. So I think it's high time the government needs to facilitate and engage the facility management so that we can have our facilities properly managed. Because the debt was just so painful and it was avoidable, to be honest with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Felix.
Thank you.
I know as much as Mr. Henrich has reeled out some of the issues that has been faced by the public, facilities. Now, I remember last year an executive order, 11, on the maintenance of national public buildings was signed, by the former administration or the former president. Now, how, or like I say, what has been the impact of this order since it was signed last year?
You see, orders are signed, but it's left for us to implement them. Not much has been done on that aspect. I believe you understand that for you to handle maintenance, you require funding. The executive order has been created, has been signed, but there are some aspects of the maintenance that we have to do through contract award. So it's the procedure and the process that determines the effectiveness of that executive order. An instance is in our own organization, there are some aspects that don't need to go through contract process. Some has to be done in-house. That's why all the organization, federal government establishment needs to have a maintenance department. And then they need to provide a small funding like an impress system. So that the small, like what my colleague has just said, I'm an engineer. Things like broken down toiletries and co. It doesn't have to go through a contract process. You don't have to wait for all of them to get down before you replace them. That's the important thing of having a maintenance section in every public organization, so that that section can handle those minor things that deface the establishment. But the other big ones, government needs to provide adequate funding to enable them to be done. So that is the main problem.
So presently, what is the situation in terms of facility management in the public sector?
I have to be honest with you. Not much has been done. I have to be honest because of funding. But I still believe that, like in FCDA, we're doing a lot internally. While some are being weighted based on, call it contract process. You see, a typical instance is what we're doing on street lights. You see all our street lights, we have maintenance culture on that. We have a contract on them. And also security. When we are talking about this maintenance, I have to bring out something to you. Government has a portion to do on the maintenance. The individuals has a portion also to do. There is so much vandalism in this country. And who are those ones that are handling vandalism? That defects the maintenance culture that we're looking at. Public infrastructures has a problem. We Nigerians don't own up what we have. So we need to start owning it up. In Abuja here, most of the thing we have is underground infrastructure. We have our underground system. We go and check our gully inlets and every other thing. What happens to them? Who takes them? So while we are talking about government, government is trying what they can do. Funding is a little bit of problem. Yes, I agree with you. But also, we Nigerians should own up the facilities that we have. Electric work, if I tell you what we're going through the electric, our poles and electric system, you won't believe it. That people will go in to remove all our cables and we'll have to replace them. People will go in to cut down our poles and we'll have to pick them and do. So we need people to own up the infrastructure that we have. Why blaming government on the other side? Yes, funding is a problem. But we also need to own up the facilities that we have.
Yeah, Mr. Enrich, he had just mentioned a very important point there that is very germane to this discussion. Now, as much as we want the government to stand up, talking about funding and some other areas that the government needs to do something about, we also will not forget the fact that as Nigerians, we owe ourselves the duty of also trying to ensure that these facilities are also maintained. Okay, so I would want you to weigh in on this issue. As much as we talk about all the issue, what should the Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian, on the street, how should we, see the public facility?
When you talk about public facility, you can't make it on just one person because it's for public use. And then putting a responsibility on just one person or thereabouts is a very big problem. And I don't think when you look at the maintenance culture in terms of facility management and the rest of it, yes, we as citizens of Nigeria, we should know how to maintain our things. When you go to the toilet, you want to flush, as a public facility, you don't need to go there and start washing. Go to our airports, everywhere is smelling. And for me, I've tried to understand, because being in the elevator industries, we have elevators in the public facilities and thereabouts. One of the major problems, as he has mentioned, is funding for me. Because having an airport manager that has more or less a threshold of just 300,000 or 500,000, how is it possible for him to be able to maintain a public facility? So putting a shield on, more or less, everybody has their own personal house. They know how to maintain their own things. But it is more a bit dicey when it comes to public facility. So you can't really put the responsibility on just one person or thereabouts. People on the street trying to maintain. Yes, it made mention about people stealing and thereabouts. But of course, those things are things, yes, as citizens we can control. But we also need security infrastructures and the rest of it to put those things in place.
Okay, now, before you go further, what innovation does Nigeria need to incorporate into facility management?
I think it is just more or less the number one thing we need to incorporate is the regulations. There should be a body that regulates, that checkmates. If you have a contract, it starts with the procurement procedures. Like in the airports or thereabout public facilities, when they were building those airports, were there retainership agreements with people to maintain those facilities? So those are the things. So it's more or less, most of all these public facilities start with the procurement procedures or processes. In the Western world thereabout, when there is a procurement, there's already a facility management or a facility company that is going to manage that facility for the next years. More or less 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, as the case may be. But look at it in our own procurement act. Is there anything like that? You award a contract, somebody builds a house or build public facilities, and after building it, it just goes off. Nobody comes to check me, nobody comes to regulate, nobody, even the contract agreements. Well, so these are most of, or thereabout important things we need to check from the procurement stage before we proceed to the facilities, to the use of the facilities.
Okay, right now we are being joined by Shuaib Aliyu, a former permanent secretary, Establishment, Training and Pension Office of the head. He's also the head of Service Kwara State. You are welcome to Nigeria today. The head of Service Kwara State. You are welcome to Nigeria today.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Mr. Aliyu, we are actually talking about public facility management against the backdrop of a doctor that lost her life in a public facility in Lagos. Now, we want your view on on facility management, talking about the public facility in Nigeria. How do you perceive the management of public facilities in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me this evening. You see, I want to consult with the doctor that it is quite unfortunate. Facility management in Nigeria has lacked, and it lacked as in. Okay, so where I'm going is that the issue of facility management cannot be left to the government alone. However, the government has a major role to play in making sure the public facilities are protected. We do this through, number one, orientation.
Please, Mr. Ali, can you improve the picture quality? So I'll come back to you later. Can you please improve the picture quality? We can hardly see you. now, now, Mr. Felix,
Yeah.
I know he's. So when he was saying some things, you were smiling. I would love to really hear your view on this because you are in the public sector, and he's talked so much about how much the onus lies on the on the government, as much as he says, okay, we as the Nigerians, we also have our own role to play, but then every other thing lies on the government. So, what is your own perception of these?
You see, there is a misconception on, we're all engineers. There is misdirection on what he's referring to. You finish a procurement, you build a property, government buildings. Government has a maintenance department. And that maintenance department is stuck with professionals. That we are in the public service doesn't mean we are not professionals. That's an impression I want to clear. I am a member of Nigerian Society of Engineers, and I've gotten to the top rank of Nigerian Society of Engineers. So I am a full-fledged practitioner practicing in the industry. That I am working for government doesn't mean that I don't understand that I am not a professional. So what I'm trying to say is that the Department of Maintenance is expected to handle the small, every public edifice is expected to have a department of maintenance and management. It's not everything that has to be outsourced. That you have a pipe or a sewage, toilet not working well, it's not those things that you have to outsource. Even let me be honest with you, that we are saying who is the one managing this particular property. I don't want to give an instances. If you don't checkmate the contractor you've given work to, if you don't supervise him well as a public person, Nigerians have the tendency of not delivering well. So we have to supervise them. So there are aspects that they have to handle. And I believe it's the funding aspect that everybody knows that is a major problem. But as I said, there is a method that is being done. An impress is allowed for small maintenance culture. And those impress is being retired as when you use them. You see, the problem is when the government provides that money as at when due.
Okay, before you go further, I know we, as Nigerians, we have this perception about, public facilities. When a structure is being put up, maybe a public structure is being put up, you hear in Nigerians say, it's not just having a building. Can we maintain it? And after some years, true to what people say, if you go back to those structures, you see that they are dilapidating.
Sure.
You agree with me, Mr.
I agree with
Felix?
100%.
Now, having this, our facility managers duly recognized in every level of government. You're in the public sector.
Sure.
So are they recognized in every level of government?
But the problem we're having, as I said, is funding. Provision of adequate funding to carry out what is being done, what is required. And if it's not properly funded, then it cannot go. And mind you, government has so much requirements that are being chasing everywhere. But we need to understand that maintenance is a priority. We can't continue developing without maintaining, because the ones we develop get dilapidated immediately. So the maintenance culture that we are claiming we don't have, we need them. You see, I want to give you an instance. Our road networks. Abuja has a good network. But if you go to Federal Ministry, look at Auchi area, everybody knows that particular section has been down. It's at the beginning, if the maintenance culture, if the funding is there, the moment you notice any problem on that section, you go in to maintain them before you're allowing them to get to the level that you have to rebuild.
I have to stop you here, Mr. Felix, so that Mr. Shuaibu can say something. You're talking about, you're giving us a perception on the public facility management.
Yes, the public, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, it was not clear earlier. You see, what I expect the government to do is this issue of orientation. The issue of orientation. We need the Ministry of Information and Communication to orientate our youth and the general citizenry to understand the importance of public facilities. Public facilities are established by taxpayers' money. It belongs to everybody. We recall when the exercise came, we could see that it was the youths that came violent. For instance, in Para here, we have a ShopRite. During the COVID-19, we have some areas where the government has spent a lot of money to have assisted the issue of COVID-19. But these people came and vandalized. So what we need is there must be collaboration between the government, the traditional institutions, and our education institutions. Our teachers, so that everybody will understand the significance of public utility. This is
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Shuaib. Now, you heard what he said. We still went back to the issue of, you know, all hands being on deck. It's not just the government. Everybody's involved here because we call it, just like we said, public facility. Yeah. It's everybody's business. Yes. So what should the government do? We're talking about the way forward now. We know we have a lot of issues, which of course have been reeled out. You know, what is the way out?
For me, one of the major way out is to focus on first, the regulations. Secondly, increase fundings. Thirdly, look at the procurement procedures. And I think if there's regulations in terms of where I'm an expert in the elevator industry, where there's no regulations and thereby everybody can just come in, install an elevator and abandon it. If there's no regulations, the engineers, we have Society of Engineers, we have the Corels. They'll come, inspect, checkmate and make sure these facilities are in very perfect conditions. Because what happened with that lady at the hospital was just so barbaric. It's a very sad situation. So if there's a regulatory body, and then we talk about training as well. Because when you have a facility management or facility, and there's no adequate training and skills for this facility engineers to be able, or facility managers to have the required skills to be able to maintain this public facility. We're calling it public facilities. If you go to ShopRite, yes, for ShopRite, it is a public facility, but being maintained or being managed by a private individual. So you can't really compare. There are two ways to it. A government-owned public facility and a private-owned public facilities. You see the difference. Okay. Yeah, even when you go to a public-owned facility being managed by a private, you can compare. You can have the feeling. You can see the difference.
Thank you very much, Mr. Felix. You reeled out a lot of problems. What is the solution?
Well, I believe that it's so straightforward. We Nigerians should own up the public facilities. If you see something that is bad, get people who are in charge informed. That's number one. Number two, adequate funding should be provided for it. Number three, every public facility must have a maintenance section attached to that public facility, so that not everything can be outsourced. Those things that are urgently has to be provided for and to be done immediately. And number four, as he said, our procurement process. Yes, there are some that are needed to be outsourced, and it looks longer, but there's nothing we can do. We must make sure that the procurement process is done and done on time.
Thank you very much. I must thank you, Felix Obiora-Nwankwo, an engineer. He's also the acting coordinator, Abuja Metropolitan Management Council, AMMC, as well as Director of Facility Maintenance and Management. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And also, we appreciate you, Henrich Akomolafe, an engineer with a lot of experience with elevators. Thank you so much for your contribution. And also a very big thank you to Shoaib Aliyu, a former Permanent Secretary, Establishment, Training and Pension Office of the Head of Service, Kwara State. Thank you for your insights. That's it on Nigeria Today. We thank you, viewer, for joining us. Thank you for always being a part of this. Don't forget, Nigeria Today is weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also watch this and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I am your carrier, Clinton. Goodbye.